Hi, I'm Daphne Hill, and this is my studio. I am a polymer clay artist, and I've been working with polymer clay for 10 years now. The past year and a half I've devoted to full-time work in clay, and fortunately I've been able to support myself through some of my work and selling at art shows, exhibits, and galleries on the East Coast. And I'm here today to demonstrate one of the techniques that I learned about a year and a half ago, silk screening on clay, making polymer clay vessels. One of the first things to understand about polymer clay is that it is a plastic. Some artists in the field of actual clay work don't consider our clay to be really clay because it's plastic, but since its texture and its flexibility mimics that of clay, we call it clay. Just to explain a little bit about the medium that I'll be working with. What I'll be making today is a vessel that you wear around your neck, similar to Japanese inro, which are little cases that were worn by Japanese men way back when they wore kimono and practiced more herbal medicine type things. What they put in their inro were herbs, other medicinals that were of use to them, and they wore it around a sash on their kimono and it hung down. And the shape of the inro vary, but what I've done is taken that idea and the idea of Native American medicine pouches and other cultures who've devised ways to carry objects that are sacred to them. I've taken that a step further, and I've found all sorts of objects that I make and mold these vessels around to make my little vessels, because through time people have suggested that I make the one in particular that I started with, that it be smaller or larger or a different size. So I've gotten creative and come up with all sorts of shapes to mold around. This, being the smallest, is actually a needle case for beaders. And then I found this nifty little gum box at Starbucks, and I used that to mold around. This is what I originally learned on. It's a nice oval shape. Being a little large for some people, that's what prompted me to find something smaller. And then we have the Tic Tac box. And for individuals who like to be a little more practical with the use of the vessel, I had a woodworking friend of mine make this, and it's actually the exact size of a credit card. Some people want to carry their credit card around in the vessel with them, so I came up with that idea. And what I'll do is just go ahead and start making the shell of the vessel, and I have a template here that I use on all of them. I've made templates for all the shapes, and you see these pasta machines, yes, that is what they are, that we use to roll out the clay. Makes it a real easy way to get it in a nice flat shape. So I've rolled this out, and I have one for light and one for dark so that the colors don't get on the light colored clay. So I've rolled this out, and I'm just going to take this is a tissue blade that's actually a really sharp surgical instrument that is used to take skin samples that we've, in the polymer clay field, have adapted for our use to cut clay. So I follow my guides here on my template and just cut out the size I need of the black. I always make my shells black because it's just a more elegant, clean color, and when it's lacquered, it really looks nice. Okay, now I'm going to score this lightly because later on in the process I'm going to cut it to form the top of the vessel. Just want to score it lightly so they have a guide. And now is about the time that I want to turn on the oven, get it heating. The polymer clay cures at 265, so it's a nice little tool to have a toaster oven. And we suggest, because polymer clay is a polymer, when it's not cured, it can have some harmful chemicals released when it cooks. So we suggest having an oven devoted to polymer clay only and not using your home oven. It's also nice just to have a oven in your studio so that you're not running back and forth. And as a release agent on the mold, for the mold, I just use talcum powder. Sometimes I'll use metallic powders that are a little bit prettier than this, but today I'll use this. You can see where I scored it, it came apart a little, and that's okay. So I take it, because I don't want it as large as this, I've cut it, to whatever size. You can make it as large or smaller than this even. Just put it around, and then I need to get a little glue. And I use like a Sobo craft glue that is a little more versatile than, say, Elmer's. So I glue both sides. And I don't want to get my hands in the glue, because as it dries, it can get in the clay and cause ugly little lumps. I glue this, and just press it together. The nice thing about polymer clay is it's so easy to cover mistakes, or to, especially when it's wet. It's very moldable and shapeable, and do just about anything you want. You can stamp it, you can carve it once it's baked. So there I have a nice seal, and I want to go under here to make sure the glue doesn't bond to the little tin, because that way it'll be harder to get off once it's baked. And now what I do is I go ahead where I scored and just cut through so that it'll slip right off once it's baked. And this actually, you may notice my line's not exactly straight. It doesn't matter a whole lot on the shell, because this is going to be hidden. It doesn't matter a whole lot if it's straight or not. But it will later on the outside part. Okay, and just put it in my tray, and the oven should be preheated. Just bake it. Several of the molds, such as these two, are not designed to withstand the heat of the oven. So what I do with those is I put a little bit more release powder and mold around this, and then slip it off and put it in a little case similar to this in the oven so that it holds its shape. With the Tic Tac box, I just try to form really sharp seams and put it in, without something inside it, and it usually holds up through the baking. Polymer clay is just wonderful as far as that goes. Next, what I need to do while it's baking, it usually takes about 20 minutes to finish baking, and I like to use my time wisely. So what I'll do next is start making the tops. And the shape of that is it's a little bit like this, but more squared off. So what I'll do for the tops is use a template of about this size, and then sort of press it on. And because the tops are a little domed, see, there's glue right there. because the tops are domed, I need to press it on the template, and then I take my finger and I just come up through the template to dome the lid a little. So I'm making the second lid. And I'm just going to cut around that so I don't have so much clay to have to work with. There we go. Form the dome. Make sure that you get a nice even dome here. And cut it out. And I like to hold the knife at an angle so that I don't cut my template, which can eventually cause the template to be of no use. That's that. Okay, the other thing I will do while we're waiting is work on the jacket. This is the color I've chosen. Since it's approaching fall, I thought I'd do a vessel with a fall leaf pattern. And this is the color. This is a nice metallic type clay. It's gold metallic. And what makes it metallic is that it has tiny mica particles, so it has a glimmer, a sheen to it. And I'll go ahead and cut that out of my template. And the jacket is a little bit larger than the shell. So I have a larger blade here that I'll use. And the marks on the template guide me. Okay, remember how I scored the shell? I'm going to score the jacket as well, but I'm going to score a little lower so that we have a nice lip. And again, this is important that you get a good straight line because this will show. It's been 20 minutes now, and it's time to pull the little case out. And while it's hot, I want to slip it off the mold, but I don't want to do it while it's too hot, because when the clay is really, really hot, it's very easy to break. And as it cools, it hardens. So we want to have it cool down just a little bit. So you have to sort of find that happy medium between too hot and not hot enough. And of course the metal conducting heat doesn't help it cool. So what I'll do is just make sure my cut here is good and okay. This is going to be the lid, and this will be the body. Just slip it off, and the release powder really allows it to slip off quite easily. clean it up a little bit. Okay, now it's ready for the top and bottom to be put on. And again, the glue makes a nice bonding agent for the polymer clay. And that's how we put the top and bottom on. A little glue here. Wipe off some excess. And I'm using my fingers, which is can cause problems later, so be sure and wipe them off. Here's the top that I made earlier. Slip that on. And I like to let it rest and let the glue bond with the clay for a while before I start molding it onto the form. So I'll let that rest and put the other one on. There's really no need to worry about having not enough. Well, it's good to have plenty of glue, but you can't really put on too much. You can always wipe it off, and it'll sand off later, as you'll see when I sand the pieces. Just place it on, get a good bond forming, and then let it rest. Come back to this one. And now I'll start just forming the lid to the case. Stick your finger inside and kind of push up to help this. And because the case is still a little warm, it softens the clay. When it's really hot in the room you're working in, or if your hands tend to be really warm, the clay will soften. While high temperatures harden the clay eventually after about 20 minutes, warm temperatures soften it. So the warmth of the case helps soften this clay a little so it's easier to work with. So now I've molded it on pretty well. And what I need to do is trim some of this excess, being careful not to trim too far. It's a nice sharp X-Acto knife. Just trim it. You'll see it's pretty soft. The more you work with the clay, knead it, and move it around, the softer it will get as well. So now I'm just going to go back over those edges and round them out. And the more smoothing I do at this stage, the less sanding I'll have to do later, which is nice because I really hate sanding. It's tedious and time consuming, and I like to do the fun things like painting.